How y'all doing? Talking about Thomas's favorite subject, how to throw gas.
Yep.
How to throw gas. What's the secret, Thomas? What's up? What's up? We got You Go Pro.
Just
Got John Madden on here. What's the secret to throwing gas, Thomas?
Working hard every single day.
Working hard. It's like a country song, right?
Yep. Filling every bucket that's not filled.
So we got UCL, partial tears. Question. Heel exercises. Oh, to heal your UCL partial tear as well. Partial tear, it's something that your body can heal. It will lay down some scar tissue. So you do want to give it some good healing time, but not just, they call it like active recovery. It is good to be doing exercises and training. You just don't want to put the stress there because it's already in an injured position, so that could get worse. So try to reduce anything that would cause pain, but anything that, smashing, stretching, I wouldn't be stretching that specific area, but strengthening through the body, eating well, sleeping well, all those things would really help the process. So, if you're in that position, you really go with the 3 strategies of get bigger, stronger, faster, eat healthier, all the things we do to make a better athlete out of the body, learn better mechanics, learn why your arm fell into that injury, and get better at your work stress or your acute to chronic workload ratio, meaning like balance out how much stress you put on your body. So if you put, say, this much stress on your body one day, and then this much stress on your body the next day, and then after that you put this much stress on the body, that's probably when you got hurt. So let's get better at evening out that stress, and that's going to be programmed through your lifting, your throwing, depending on your season, all important things we do with TopVelocity programming. Say, what's up, Dan? I think I don't know how to actually drive. I was just doing the sled drives and was told I'm not driving at all. Like, how do you drive off your back leg? Can you show me? Yes, Dan, driving with the sleds. Damn it, my sleds are the things off my sled. But basically, if you had the sled, the hard part with the sled, if you're doing a front sled or even a rear driving sled, is if you go immediately into rotation, your sled's not going to move, right? So you have to be able to delay rotation. You have to fall and build your momentum. And then you got to drive and power the sled. So if you start rotation, the moment you want to open or turn your back leg in, you ain't going to build any power. You're not going to move the sled. And if the sleds aren't shooting up onto you, driving through, then it's a problem. That is Dan.
Yeah, he sent it to me.
How did he know to send it to you?
Well, he
Dan,
on Top V.
Dan, you're on everybody, dude. He is the man. He's like on everybody.
He worked hard, but yeah, I told him he didn't have any drive. He's basically just using momentum and then reaching with the front foot, and that's why it's pulling it.
Okay, Thomas is your man. You can help him, Thomas?
I told him already.
All right. But, he's going to keep coming. He needs the help.
Yeah.
Any mobility exercises for hip extension besides bandage stretches and the couch stretch for hip extension? I think what you can do is really get your posterior chain stronger. So if I can provide more stability through my glutes into better posture, and, more quad or balance of hamstring to quad strength, I don't want my quads overactive or over dominant, that should release the tension in the front of your hip. So work on posture, work on glute, hamstring, posterior chain strength could help balance that out and relieve some of that problem. Why?
For this one.
Yeah, I didn't pull it up. Let's see. It doesn't show it. There it is. All right, and I got to pull up Periscope. Let's see. Why shouldn't people throw weighted balls? So, let's be careful what we're saying. It's weighted baseballs is what I stand out against, and it's typically high intent because I actually have a weighted baseball 7-ounce in one of my drills in level 3 program, and the catcher's drills I do it too. But here's the thing with the high intent weighted baseballs. So studies show if you're late to pronate and internally rotate, you hold medial or you hold stress in the medial elbow, in the front of the elbow, you hold that there longer. And that's where the torques become high enough to tear the UCL. So here's the thing, something like close to an 80-mile-an-hour fastball is enough stress to tear your UCL. So if we hold in that valgus position too long, then the chances that we're going to actually pop that tendon because the flexor mass, the bicep triceps couldn't stabilize that joint, it gets greater. If we're gonna have to get in that valgus position because we externally rotate, we just don't want to be there long. We want to quickly pronate, internally rotate and pronate. Problem is heavier weight forces you to stay there longer, okay? And in cases where it's not really peaking your torques, it's just holding you there longer, and it's taking longer to internally rotate and pronate. That's why if I'm gonna do a weight, I'd rather do a football, because the football forces me to do that earlier, because that's the only way I'm gonna spiral the football. I don't have to do that with a baseball. It's like a lot of times when you grab a weighted ball, you throw it high, it's because it held you here longer, and then you threw it higher. Yeah, you can try to force and throw it down, but if you don't have the ability to do that, if you don't have the strength to internally rotate and pronate, then you're gonna be in a bad position. Specifically if you're running aggressively and throwing it and it's doing that, and you're adjusting biomechanically by dropping your elbow to do that, it gets worse because you're trying to get the ball down. So it just puts you in a place, specifically at high intent, where you're gonna be holding that valgus load longer than you would with a 5-ounce baseball. At the same time too, it can force acutely, like quickly, more external rotation because of the stress being held in that position. And studies show the more external rotation you gain, it has a high correlation to arm injury. So you got to be careful in this position. It's a very dangerous position for the UCL joint, and unfortunately, heavier weight makes it harder for us to protect by internally rotating and pronating in this position. So I'm very careful with drills that could hold me there too long, too aggressively in my throws over time. What else we got?
Who has the best, most efficient mechanics you've ever seen?
Who has the most?
Who has the best, most efficient mechanics you've ever seen?
Okay. Legally, I'm not supposed to. What am I not supposed to do, Gary? I gotta remember.
I guess you can talk about them.
I guess I can talk about them. So I'm in a legal dispute over analyzing current MLB players, and I don't know. I'll try to work around this topic. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna talk about someone who is not a current MLB player, so I don't get in trouble. So it's asking me who I think is the best example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna go to Nolan Ryan. I'm gonna go to Nolan Ryan. This was my era growing up. Obviously, I like a lot of current guys. I'm just not gonna talk about them. So Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan's a great example. Why? He used his body, specifically at the end of his career. He was very dynamic. He was a lifter, bigger, stronger, faster. It was great seeing a lifter who in the 90s said he lifted 80,000 pounds a week, and he was the hardest thrower in the game. He said he lifted 80,000 pounds a week. He had tree trunk legs, big core, upper body, and he built a huge, long, explosive stride. He had optimal hip to shoulder separation, and great forward trunk delts. Biomechanically, he had all the elite movements in a big frame, and he did it explosively, and he could repeat it every time. So that's a great example. Someone who's not a current MLB player. Top 3 Olympic lifts to gain velocity. Well, there's only 2 Olympic lifts. So technically, I can't answer that question. The question to you is, what are the 2 Olympic lifts? Now, there's variations of those lifts, but what are the 2 Olympic lifts? See if somebody can get that question. What else we got, Gary, over there?
This is kind of relating to the lift. He said, what kind of exercise could replace power clean?
So why would we want to replace power clean? So power clean, what does a power clean do? A power clean allows us to develop power, but not just develop power. That's where people go wrong. They go, well, I can develop power with a weighted box jump, with a loaded trap bar. I can jump with a trap bar, and that could generate power. I would still debate, is it the same? Maybe we can get it to the same because you're using the same amount of weight. But that's not just the benefit of the power clean. The true benefit of the power clean is that you're generating power through the kinetic chain. Like you're having to control and move that power through the bar all the way up to your upper body, which forces the kinetic chain or the central nervous system to have to overload to control every joint and every movement all the way up, precisely to keep the bar path from moving any, forward or back, which would cause the technique of the lift to break down. So you're generating power through a highly sophisticated kinetic chain movement up by the central nervous system. There's no other alternative for that I've ever seen, that anyone's ever convinced me of. If you think you can convince me of that, I'd love to hear your side of the story. What's a better way than power clean or Olympic lift to challenge the central nervous system to maximize power through every joint in the body? That's my question to you. What's the alternative? I don't think there is an alternative.
No, there's no alternative.
Yep.
Should front foot land at 45 degrees? Love your content.
Front foot land at 45 degrees. So the front foot position is, okay, so if I take my back foot on the rubber and I draw a straight line from the middle of my foot to the rubber, we want to land 6 inches, 7 inches inside that, which would, if I'm driving, would technically put me toe to heel. Because think about it. If my foot on an average, say 6 footer is about a 12. What size shoe you wear? 13. 12, 13. If I cut it in half, that's 6 to 7 inches, right? So if I'm going 6 to 7 inches inside and I'm driving, I'm toe to heel, right? So that means if I'm driving, my toe is in line with my heel or slightly, the heel slightly closed. Now then I want the front foot position to be 20 degrees closed. Why is that important? Because it's how when my back foot is driven in straight, when I land, it puts my femur, my front leg, slightly across my body. Why does it have to be slightly across your body? So the hips, when they open up, they lock down perfectly straight. The legs, the femurs connect on the outside of the hips, right? The femur comes here and then goes in. So it's out here. So when I cross over, it creates stability. If I keep it here and dry it out, now when I open up my hips are now pointing over here. So that's why I don't want to land open, because now my hips are going to want to go over here to stabilize. I want to land in that slightly closed position. So my hips lock down and stabilize, they're pointing straight to the target. Think so?
Hey, I'm starting the Ace Pitcher Handbook next week. With throwing, should I be taking it easy on the power of the throws till I get the technique right? I've had some shoulder issues.
Yeah, good point. I think a lot of guys can get into any throwing program and they want to make gains and they're just trying to overthrow. The problem is if your technique is not good and you're too much upper body where you're overcompensating, that's just going to be stress. Not because of the program, not because of the drills, because of the poor mechanics and the overthrowing. So if you know your technique isn't good, you need to bring the intensities down until you develop better technique. Now, sometimes you need an intensity to see how things are opening up. Sometimes things separate better, your hips mobilize better. I understand that, but you might have to pace yourself and manage your stress over time, meaning like don't make big jumps and throws, same amount of throws each time or just a little bit of an increase. And don't overdo it until your technique gets good. So yeah, you're probably in a place where you're overdoing it and your body isn't ready for that because the techniques are poor, and that's linked to the body not being strong enough, mobile enough, coordinated enough, to be able to put that kind of intensity into it without it breaking down. And that doesn't matter whose program you're in, but if you're in this program and you're doing that, that would not be a good thing. So let's really, really focus on the core principles that we're developing, the physical fitness, the mechanics, and let's keep the overuse and the intensity down until that gets better. And as that gets better, you can pick up your intensity and your throws. Guys, you got to do this smart. If not, it doesn't matter what program you're going to hurt yourself. What else we got? Do you believe shoulder pain when doing over the head exercises comes from bad form or overuse? So the overhead exercises, you could be, if you just saw my video on the scaps, you could be in a place where your scaps are dysfunctional. You could have weak scaps because the scaps have to move and upwardly rotate to reduce the stress on the rotator cuff. So you could be in a place where you just don't have strong enough scaps to support your shoulder movements. And sometimes too, with the guys in the overheads, when they get out here, it just puts more stress into that impingement, which is linked to weak scaps. So if you're in there, how about come elbows forward and just transfer your weight? We're not trying to use the arm. So it could be you're out here and that just makes the impingements worse.
Do you advocate for pitchers to do overhead lifting such as clean and jerk and snatch?
So the overhead lifting is, so here's the thing, I was talking about it today. The muscles in the upper body are used in the throwing. They are used to lift the arm up, stabilize the arm back, and distract the arm going forward. So we're in a catch-22 now. These muscles that I use to perform the skill need to be strong, functional, and you know, that's it, strong and functional. So I need to make sure if they're not, that I am helping them develop better function and better strength. How would I do that? By lifting and moving and loading overhead, right? Loading in all directions. Load here, you know, push, pull, push, pull. That would help them improve their functionality, improve their strength, which will then help me when I do the same by throwing in that same position. The problem is when you're weak upper body and your arms already breaking down from throwing, and then you throw all the functional weight training on top of it to try to get it stronger, then everything comes crashing down. It's a programming issue. Yes, you need upper body strength. Yes, you need upper body function. Yes, you need to throw. You need to throw, you know, a lot. You need to throw hard. And a lot of times those things are working against each other. I need to be strong, but I need to throw. I need to be rested to recover, but I need to throw. So it's like all these things are fighting each other that need to be done, and it's a programming issue. You need to get into good programming, like we do with TopVelocity, with the TopVelocity programs. That you need someone to show you how this all works together, and that's what we do here, right?
Yes.
Anything you want to add?
Got it. I just got through eating.
Oh, so you in that coma? You're in that food coma?
Like, I almost went to sleep. I was like, let me watch something.
All right.
It says, what exercises would you recommend for shoulder pain that you talked about in the video you posted earlier today?
So I'm gonna post one tonight, and it's a really good one. You know, there's many other ways that we can do it. So here's a typical one. You know, push-up plus. So when we go extended and then we let the scaps continue to push forward, that activates the serratus to pull the scap around. So that's why a lot of the bench press gets a negative, because when you're pressing, there's no protraction or scapular movement. So what we do is get in a push-up position, or even get tubing, or get dumbbells. I want you to press and then pull, protract your scaps around, and then bring them back, flex, press, bring your scaps around, right? So you activate that serratus in here, right in here, and a little bit of the lower tract. Another one I'm going to show you later, which is really, really important, is getting into the rotational movements, or using rotation in the arm to strengthen the scaps. And that's a really important concept, because the scaps rotate. They rotate up and then they rotate down. And a lot of times in just pressing, it's not really driving that rotation of the scaps. The scaps are just kind of, you know, they're moving laterally, even though it is activating some of the similar muscles, but not as much as if I'm rotating. Then you get the full function of the scap. So I like to do some rotational work, and I'll post that video either tonight or tomorrow, and everybody can see it. What else we got?
How do you go about creating a better, more efficient arm path for pitchers who have less than optimal arm action, like specific drills, anything else?
So there's a big misconception with arm action. So when I see someone throwing like this, right, And I'm going, well, that's a poor arm action, right? And we want to see him throwing like some, big league pitcher that gives us a good example, right? Like this. That's not just taking that guy and taking this arm, which technically the arm is just a stick that's stuck into this joint here, and just changing where the stick goes. That's not going to fix the problem, because this is called a distal segment. It's the extension of the body. It's the end of the whip. It's the string hanging off your shirt. It's reacting to what your body's doing. It's not driving the movement. So the misconception is bad arm action. Let's change the arm action. That's a bad reaction, because that's not how the physics works. The physics goes, this is moving like this because the trunk is doing this and the hips are doing this, and that's why the arm is doing that. So I have to do this correctly. I have to get the hips to do that. Then I got to get the trunk to get a good posture and do that. And now the arm wants to do that, right? So you really got to get away from the conventional understanding that, well, this is bad arm action, so I'm just going to use the arm and fix that arm action, because it's not going to work well that way. What do you think?
You hit the nail on the head.
You got good insight. What happened? You must have ate like something really fatty, and it put you.
Kim's mother cooked me some food, and there was like a big plate.
It was good?
Yes.
Oh, good for you. All right, we lost Gary. He's in a coma. No advice from Gary today.
I'm a good reader, though.
Right.
What's the best drill to use for the Velo Pro, in your opinion?
I think the Velo Pro is just great to put on and use. It gives you a quick response, forcing you into the hip, because what happens when you put on the Velo Pro? If you guys want to check out the Velo Pro, TopVelocity.net/Velo Pro. When you put it on, it's this belt that has bungees down to your heel. And once you put it on, your foot wants to do that. So what you have to do is create that activity to extend your leg. So when I'm extending my leg, what's going on? My glute's on, my quad is on, my ankle's kicked on. So all this musculature is turned on, and this musculature is turned off. So when this musculature is turned on, we can't relax and get out of this hip. We lift, and we want to sit into that hip because all that musculature is on. So just the fact of putting it on and experiencing that as a hitter, as a pitcher, as a thrower, is that in itself almost makes all of your drills really good. Because if I'm in a drill and I'm throwing, even if it's a 3X drill, whatever, and I'm throwing and that my foot's kicking me in the butt, what does that mean? It means I'm transferring early and I'm relaxing that leg and it's kicking me in the butt, and we don't want to do that. The longer I stay in that leg as a hitter, as a pitcher, the more force I can generate in that ground, which is where all my energy comes from. All we can do is propel ourselves. We don't have the ability to create anti-gravity disturbance out of our body, right? We can't just start floating. All we have the ability to do is push off objects. So when I can stay loaded into the only leg that is on the ground and push more into it, that's a plus for velocity and performance. Can you talk about coming back from slap repair? So I recovered from a rotator cuff tear. So my supraspinatus tore, and they had to shave off the tip of my acromion, or my clavicle, because it was tearing that. More than likely, I know why, because no one taught me how to strengthen my scap. So every time I lifted my arm, my scaps weren't lifting, and I was just destroying my shoulder, my rotator cuff. Slap tears are pretty much the same case. You're getting into a place where your scaps aren't really helping you, and you're just grinding the glenohumeral joint, and you're tearing the bicep tendon that goes right into the labrum. So repair is strengthening that shoulder as best you can. Strengthening the small rotator cuff muscles, which are the teres minor, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, subscapularis. Strengthening those, and then strengthening the capsule around it, the deltoids, the pecs, the lats, then the scapular movements, the levator scapula, the rhomboids, minor, major, the upper trap, middle trap, lower trap, serratus anterior, getting all in there and strengthening all that with the rest of the kinetic chain, the rest of the body, is going to be your best way back to health. No, there's no better way. And then from there, you got to learn how to move with better mechanics. You ran out of questions on that?
No, I drive well out of back foot and stride. I drive well out of back foot and stride. My height is 6 feet, but coming into foot strike, my ankle is below my knee from side view, so I don't get any front leg extension. How would you fix that?
Okay, so what you're saying is when he lands, his front foot is below his knee. So it sounds like he's in this position, which would be bad because your hips are back, your trunk is forward, and now you're forced to release the ball immediately. We want to land in the opposite position, foot in front of knee, trunk back, shoulders closed. So now we have all that time to transfer that. And when you give it time, now it has time to drive the leg, which accelerates that trunk. So if you're landing in this position and your hips are back, that's what happened. You transferred your weight too early. You shifted your weight too early and you left your hips behind. You have to lead through the hips. You have to delay rotation to last minute, ride the mound, falling down the same rate, and drive through the backside, through the hips, to lead through the hips and delay the trunk. The hips can lead the way, then the trunk can follow, and now you have time and you're in a better position to drive that leg. So you're just failing in loading your weight back and driving through your hips. That's what's getting you. So it's either a functional issue you're either lacking hip mobility in all aspects, strength, typically both. Hip mobility, strength, and power in your lower half. That's what's doing. I coach high school baseball, but we work with all ages of youth programs. What should we, as Ryan, Coach Ryan there, with Facebook, unfortunately it cuts you off and goes to see more. It looks like you got about 3 sentences you can ask the question and then just ask it again. I don't know why Facebook does that, because if I hit see more, it won't let me see it in the live session. I got one more. Dan, hit 34 in chest up separation. Old was 32. Good job, Dan. And was sitting nothing but 34s on lateral med ball when my highest was 34, like 2 to 3 weeks on flat ground. That's good, Dan. But with you, you're a big guy. So big guys typically throw the med balls better because they have more mass behind the ball, and it's a bigger ball. So the problem is you guys have a hard time going to the baseballs because you have to then move faster, and a lot of times you don't. So let's focus on really good numbers for you. Like, don't cut yourself short. I really want to see 40s on the overheads. I want to see 45s plus on separations when you're in an elite level. Ball exit has increased from 94 to 100. What correlation to velo would you expect was 90 in fall? Ball exit has increased from 94 to 100. Is that as a pitcher or a hitter? What correlation to velo would you expect was 90 miles per hour? I don't get that. What correlation to velo would you expect was 90 miles per hour? I don't know. Can you ask that? Be more specific. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. I'm starting to get the med ball velo to transfer to my target throws, to which I'm happy about. Just got to get back. All right, Dan. It sounds like you're getting it. You just got to understand you got to move quicker with the baseballs. Thomas is pretty hot. There you go. Oh, yeah. Who said that? Is that your lady on here? I hope that's her. You in trouble. Question: med ball throws are based on feel and the kinetic chain. Yes, med ball throws are based on mechanics. I wouldn't say feel, but mechanics. Optimal mechanics through the kinetic chain. Can we see some impingement stuff, please? Man, a lot of people have some shoulder impingements. Makes sense. I just talked about one earlier. Using push-up plus is a great one, but I'm going to post a good one tonight or tomorrow that it'll really help. Do you think I could still do lateral throws, or should I just wait to get to 40? Yeah, Dan, I think you need to keep working on the linear throws and get your speeds to 40. Laterals are when you're getting close to putting it all in the mound, and you need to get the lateral work in. How do you work on strength for throwing a baseball? How do you work on strength for throwing a baseball? You don't want to take one, Gary?
Do Brent's program.
Yeah.
The easy answer.
That is an easy answer. Next. We're moving. Let's go. Olympic lifts. So the guy answered snatch and clean and jerk. Very good, Hector. You're the man. He knows it. So variations. What variations are really great for training? I like all the clean variations. So clean pulls, hang cleans, and power cleans.
What drill would you recommend to help with hip to shoulder separation?
So the separation med ball throws, where you're in an internal rotated back position and your shoulders are closed. So it's forcing you to be separated, because that's what happens when you hit front foot. You're driving, your hips are open, your femur's internally rotated, and then we're closing off. So start in that position. That's what we do with the med ball throws. Drive and try to throw out of the position. Those are great drills because it's forcing you to work through. My boy is 16 and hit 85 in October, but now season is about to start, and he is only 81. Okay, I lose the rest of the question. Now here's the problem. If you're in your off season, you're 85, and then season gets close, you go to 81. What is happening is you could be focusing on, pitches. Like you're focusing on the important stuff. I get it, but then you start losing your mechanics. And that to me means in the off season, you didn't really create enough muscle memory around the mechanics that were giving you 85. You'd worked it up to 85, but it got to a point where those mechanics that you had built really weren't just natural. It wasn't subconscious at that point. You can still get to it, but the point is you need to get back to a lot of things that were working for you. You need to go back to, hey, when I was throwing 85, I was doing this really well. That's why when I'm around here with guys that are throwing good numbers, I'm like, okay, what are we doing well? Like, you got to write this down, because when you go into season and you lose it, right, Thomas?
Yes, sir.
You got to go back and be like, oh, I was doing this really well, and I'm not doing this well anymore. And you got to get back on the horse. So, but that's just the game we play. Like, it's never mastered. You're always just trying to do the best you can.
What's the closest training center to Missouri that does the TopVelocity program?
Missouri, speak up, Hector. We got Hector Garcia it's hard working. Let me see what his Instagram is. This is on Instagram. Just answered his question, or he just commented. Where is it, Hector? He's probably throwing it up at the bottom and I'm missing it. Hard working 365, that's what I think it is. Search him on Instagram. There it is, hard work training 360. I was wrong. Hard work training 360. That's Hector Garcia, but he's in Missouri. I believe he's in Kansas City, Missouri. Am I right, Hector? Or are y'all just in Kansas? What degree of separation is good goal for hip to shoulder separation? 70 to 90, I guess I could say. 70 to 90. Any good drills for lead leg blocking, stabilizing? All the chest up throws that we do, where you can't allow your trunk to rotate. Really a great opportunity, because everything's just going forward, to work on stabilization, extension. Chest up med throws, chest up target throws in the TopVelocity programs are ideal for that training. I live where it's kind of cold right now, so I can't really toss and work on things outside of often. I use my Jaeger bands and work on my mechanics every night. Anything else I can be doing inside? You can be lifting. Lifting, you just need...
How big is your space where you're working out?
Yeah, you just need a basement, you need a garage, you need one of those racks, and those rubber weights. Can't beat that. If you had 45 feet, if I had 25 feet, you can do our med throws. So, point is, the TopVelocity program is doesn't take a lot of space. We used to do it in barely a 2,000 square foot facility in my dad's garage. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where it started. And now it's evolved to this. And still, we only got 45 feet right here. And we can go long distance. So you should be able to do the TopVelocity programs in small space. That's why I see a lot of guys in the north doing the Top V programs.
Any top velo training centers close to San Diego?
Unfortunately, I don't have anyone off the head right now. We do come out to California for camps every now and then. We will be in Arizona, not too far away. Be in Arizona, Phoenix, at Fuel Factory Baseball. Guys, follow Fuel Factory Baseball on Instagram. We will be there March 23rd and 24th for a camp. 22nd for a clinic. The clinic is not going to be like at the camp. It's just going to be more introductory. But if you want more information on the clinic, you have to reach out to me or reach out to Zinger at Fuel Factory Baseball. But if you want the camp, you go to topvelocity.org and you can sign up for that camp. Can I do med ball throws 4 times a week? Like, would it hurt me to do 4 times a week instead of 3? You could, Dan, but I think right now you need more of the lifting, the training, the mobility work. So I would say no, do the 3 and work on your lifting and your mobility work. How many spots do you guys have left for the May camps? We're pretty open. It's not too busy yet. Like I said, also too, we got camps. I guess May's coming up close. I'd say the only thing you need to really sign up for is the living. Get your living booked if you're going to stay here longer than just say 2 days or a week for the camp. For overhead lifting, would the jerks cover all of it, or should I add in a military press overhead carry? We have military presses in the program, but you can add in overhead carry. Yeah, follow Active Life RX and learn their overhead work. Son is experiencing lots of post-game soreness, which includes legs, back, shoulders, neck, and arms. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing if you're experiencing all of your body, but it could be a sign to not enough training in the off season. So if your body has been through, say, our training programs, that shouldn't be the case. So, I mean, it's a plus that it's the total body, but I wouldn't say it's a plus that he's having, if it's intense or severe, I wouldn't say that's a plus.
What do you think the best elbow and arm care routine?
Elbow and arm care. Well, you just basically need good forearm training, which we use fat grips and forearm routines. And, shoulder, we do rotator cuff stuff, light dumbbells, tubing. Then we got to get in our scaps, right? We got to do some scapular work, push up plus, overhead lifts, pulls. Like I said, it's got to be, and then it's got to get into the hips, because we know there's a one-to-one relationship. If the right hip is immobile, the right shoulder is going to be immobile. So really, arm care can set you up for failure. If all you do is just do tubing every day, that's not going to be enough to keep you healthy. It has to be a total body approach. You can jump in whenever you want, man.
It's a bunch of questions that popped up
All right.
here. What's a good front leg path to allow for exploding the hips last second and not trying to use the front leg as momentum? And
Thomas can answer that.
should I land on toe or heel?
What's a good front leg path to be explosive through your hips, and should he land toe or heel? Here's my take. Be careful thinking your front leg is going to make your back hip explosive.
Yeah, 100%.
But it can support it, right?
Yeah, I mean, your front leg's basically taking all your momentum and all your separation into it. I mean, there's a lot of lifts, basically, that, we do here. That'll definitely help.
But like biomechanically, what do you do with your front leg to prevent it from flying open?
Me personally, I just try to think about letting it float almost in the air while I'm riding my back leg, and then once I initiate my drive, my back hip is basically what opens up my front leg.
Yeah, I think that is a better approach. As much as I even tell guys you can trigger rotation by opening your front leg, you got to be careful with that. Because I talk about the feet have to be synced up. So I'm telling you they got to be together, but sometimes it's just better to say, hey, this back hip is going to drive my front side open.
That's basically what I like to think about, because if I'm thinking my front foot is, triggering my back hip to open, then it's basically, you almost get that anchor, it pulls you off the mound, and you think you're getting, bigger stride or more distance traveled, but in reality of it, it's just you, basically jumping and reaching instead of actually driving down the mound.
Because I say too, the active throwing is bringing this back shoulder around, the arm cocked up, right? If I bring the back shoulder around, the arm cocked up, I throw the ball. So there's 2 ways I can do this. I can pull the glove side to bring the shoulder around, or I can drive the back hip ahead of my back shoulder, and that brings it around. Which one's going to work better? So yeah, you can do it 2 ways, but which one's going to work better? Is it the glove side, or is it the back hip driving your back shoulder?
Of course. I mean, me personally, it's definitely the back side.
Right. I mean, do you think, guys do it, but how much success can you have just pulling your glove side to get your arm around?
Probably not much. I mean, you're probably going to hurt yourself, most likely.
Yeah, exactly. You get away with it, you were lucky, but you're going to eventually hurt. You're almost guaranteed you'll hurt yourself.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
Sooner or later it's going to happen.
Nice one. That was good.
Sometimes when I throw, I have pain in the rear delts. What could it be?
So the rear delt is, what's happening is when you go to release, your scap is protracting, and the back delt is having to distract. Basically, your arm's being pulled out of socket, and it's having to pull back on that humerus. Your humerus is going, whoop, and your rear delt's going, nope, can't pull that away. So, to me, that's a biomechanical issue. You're getting to a point where your trunk's probably stopping early, and your arm's extending in front of your face, and it's being pulled out of socket. At that point, it's coming back. If I have, good trunk energy driving me forward and really launching my body forward, my arm gets to a place where it can't go any further anymore, and it starts turning over. Sorry. It starts turning over, right? So you need to get your trunk farther out. If I get my trunk farther out, my arm's going to want to go into rotation and not, as my trunk stops, and not just keep extending forward into extension. It's going to want to turn over into rotation. So to me, that's your trunk. You got to get your trunk more active, more dynamic, more forward tilt, and that stopping of your trunk is what's causing that distraction and being supported by your rear delt. That would be my opinion. Can sprints help with velocity? Of course. Really great on enhancing testosterone. Really great on breaking down muscle. You typically get that when you go out and sprint. Your legs want to swell.
Yeah, it builds muscle.
Right. So it's a great approach. It's an anaerobic approach, specifically if it's in a short sprint at maximum intensities. That's a better approach. If your glute and core is supposed to be squeezed, is your glute and core supposed to be squeezed, activated during hip rotation? Yeah, the glute stabilizes the hip, which allows the femur to better rotate because it gives it stability. The core, because you're separated in that movement here, needs to squeeze so your spine can rotate. So yeah, those are all important things. What's up, Jake? On the chest up drills with the baseballs, does the thumb point back like a curveball, or are you supposed to have the thumb sideways? That's a really good question, Jake. So what are you saying? In our chest up throws, is my thumb here or is my thumb here? Now, here's the thing about the UCL. When the arm is supinated, which is thumb back, the ulnar and the radius are side to side. When the thumb is pointing forward, you're pronated, and the ulnar, or the radius, is now crossing the ulnar. It's crossing. And when these bones cross, it's like a twisting force. It's creating stability. So that's why pronation is good. It's good for two things to relieve and stress the elbow. It turns the elbow over and gets the stress away from the medial side, and it creates that compressionary force in the elbow to protect it. So here's the thing. You never really want to be fully relaxed, supinated, in external rotation. There's not enough compression in that elbow, and you're going to be late to pronate. So what we do is, we're going to go into supination. We're going to go thumb back, but it's going to be through resistance, meaning the force should create rotation. Like it's not good to hold neutral because then you actually don't get that good release of pronation, that spin into the form rotation. So what you do, you want to feel some supination, but you're still trying to resist it. You're trying to push against it. And that pushing against it creates the release, that quick release into pronation. So you want the thumb going back, but you don't want to be sitting there holding it back and relaxed. You want to be resisting there to create the tension that will spring it into pronation quickly.
Do you ever do hypertrophic work, like sets of 8 to 12, or do you just mainly work on strength and power?
Well, hypertrophic is a strength phase or training, and yes, we do high reps on strength lifts. So like our squats, Romanian deadlifts, we're typically 6 to 10, and then on our power stuff, which is not hypertrophy, it's more central nervous system. It's more trying to light up the central nervous system, and power and rate of force development. Those are more, 1 to 4, 6 at most. So we do both, but it just depends what the purpose of the lift is. I've always done the drill with my thumb back. Okay, that's Jake. Like the football drills in the beginning program. Okay, on the pronation thing. I'm 5'8", 180 pounds and sit around 80. What is the best way to improve my speed anyway? do the program, right,
Yeah.
Gary? Top Velocity program. And if you want a little starter course, topvelocity.net/lower half. I mean, instead of sitting here and just going through the program, everybody can go to topvelocity.net/lower half and get that little starter program to start learning how this works, because it's a lower half foundation. Why did y'all choose undulated periodization for the program as opposed to other periodization methods? It's because it's the school that I came from with the Olympic lifters. For example, like learning from Matt Bruce, Brute Strength, and his coach Gail Hatch, who taught also my coach Kurt Hester, and we come from really the beginning of strength and conditioning. So here's my legacy. I was taught by Kurt Hester, who was taught by Coach Hatch, which trained the Olympic lifter Matt Bruce, who runs Brute Strength, who Coach Hatch was taught by Alvin Roy, who Alvin Roy was the first strength and conditioning coach hired into a professional sport by the San Diego Chargers, I think back in the 50s or 60s. So we actually, this method, all this training, Olympic method, comes from the beginning of strength and conditioning. And from Hatch up, I think it was built on periodization and undulated. And still, it's an effective approach at this point to preventing fatigue and making gains. It's this loading, unloading aspect. I don't like periodization. If you're looking at, say, I don't like triphasic periodization personally for what we do as far as with throwing athletes, because you are phasing and segmenting strength, speed, power. And I find when you isolate these phases and you just work strength, what happens is speed, power starts to atrophy, and then you're like bouncing back and forth. You're like, well, I gotta go work on strength, and then all of a sudden now I'm on speed, and now my strength's going down. Oh, then I gotta go work on power, and now my speed's going down. Whatever. The point is, like, I find it best, specifically when we're always trying to translate it to the skill, that we work on all things at once through a periodization, undulated periodization, to where we're not in this linear progression of loading, to where we create these big crashes. You be the testament of that. When a guys do a performance week, could you imagine them going into another performance week?
No,
They wouldn't make it. They wouldn't show up.
it's hard for them to show up when they're on their recovery weeks.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
right. So the point is, like, could you imagine doing it without
Nah,
up and down?
No,
Right.
not at all.
Let's see, Brent. If I clean 400 and power clean 360, that's masturbate. What did you say? Will I be Batman? Yes, Ryan, you'll be Batman.
What is that?
That's Ryan Masservy. Yes, you'll be Batman. How are you doing, man? Have you gotten your hip mobility? Have you translated all your power? Have you gotten the mobility down? Have you gotten the biomechanics down with it? I hope so. Does running a fast 60 increase velo? It is a component of velocity because it's a speed power component, so it does help. Or have an effect on velo? Yes, it has an effect. Are you reading all questions, trying to? What do we got?
I know you say 2-pound med balls for the throws. Would it hurt to bump that up a pound or two if you feel strong enough?
I don't like it, guys. I don't like going over 2 pounds because it starts to slow us down, and then we get into a speed difference between the baseballs and the med balls. So I would rather you go to a 1-pound ball. We use it every now and then. I would rather you do 2 pounds to 1 pound because, like I said, when we go over 2, the body movements just really, really start to slow down. And a lot of what these drills are for, it's not like lifting. We're not trying to like put on a bigger load, even though we are getting some adaptation through the loading. It's really on training the biomechanics, and the heavier throw forces us to do it better. It forces us with the 2 hands to separate better, to drive better. That's the benefit of it. And if we're doing such a heavy weight that it slows us down, then the timing gets off. Timing's off, and that's a key piece. That's why it'll hurt the translation to the baseballs. So.
Love you guys' channel. Do you think throwing 84 to 86 as a sophomore in high school, I could be hitting 90 consistently by my senior year?
I mean, I think it's exciting to be throwing that hard as a sophomore in high school. I don't think I threw that hard. I know I didn't throw that hard. The only problem is I've seen guys, like, I'll never forget the kid in, I don't know, it was Little League World Series or some, international baseball. He's 15 from Peru or something, and he was throwing 95, and I predicted that there's a good chance, just because he was a stocky kid, that as he went through his aging, he would lose all that mobility that we have when we're growing, and it would really hurt his velocity. And I don't know if it's true, but I heard his velocity was way down as he got older. So that's the thing. I don't know if here's the thing: when you're not fully grown, your body's still going to change. And Gary can tell you the stories. I mean, why don't you tell them? How hard did you throw when you were a kid to how hard did you throw now? And talk about how much your body changed in all that training, or in that all that growing.
I think I was throwing 90-something my freshman year, but I was, 5'10", 176 pounds. Then my senior year, I was 5'10", 5'11", 190 pounds. Then my freshman year of college, I gained 30 pounds.
And then your ball speed kind of started going down. Because you got well, and a lot of people go, well, he shouldn't have worked out or he shouldn't have eaten a lot. That wasn't the case. His body was changing. His DNA was still molding him. So when he was young, your joints are pliable because your bones have to keep growing. So it doesn't want to tighten the joint up when your bones are trying to grow, because it would rip your joints. So when you're growing, your joints stay really pliable to allow for the length in the bones to grow. So if you're taking advantage of that with the added mobility and the spring to throw hard, but then your DNA goes, all right, you're done growing, everything's going to tighten up because this is your DNA. You're a brawn, thick guy. Then what happens? Then all of a sudden you lose your velocity. So it doesn't mean you can't get it back. It just means you're now working against time. You're working against your DNA to try to mobilize it and make it do something that genetically is not designed to do. Doesn't mean it can't do it. You have to force an adaptation, and that's a harder process than just something obviously naturally happening, right? Can throwing over the top cause more impingements versus a 3/4 arm slot? Here's the thing, if I go up here and I don't have good scapular movement, I'm gonna get an impingement. But dropping down here is gonna create less of impingement, but now it could create elbow problems because you lack strength. So you're gonna lack strength to internally rotate. You're gonna lack strength to pronate. And down here, it's harder to do those things. Up here, at pronate, all that happens easier. So you might go down here and your shoulder feels better, but now your elbow's blowing up. I had a kid the other day just like that. He was right here, and his elbow was blowing up every throw. And then when I forced him to get his trunk up, stabilize his scaps, throw over the top, he just kept smiling. He's like, my arm doesn't hurt. Right? The kid that was here for the camp.
Oh, yeah. Can you explain what to do with the arm on the med ball throws?
So explain what to do with the arm on the med ball throws. So, I don't know exactly what you're saying, but it's a two-handed throw, all right? Specifically in separation, this hand is just supporting the movement. This hand is actually going to the same arm path. I've got a great video on YouTube on the arm action of a high-velocity pitcher. Go look that up. It'll show you the arm path and where it's supposed to go. So when you throw the med balls, you're going to go through the same arm path, but this hand is going to support it like you're holding a bat. Okay? Just think of like holding a bat. And this is what guys go wrong, is when they go to turn, they pull this arm over their head. You're flying open. So anytime you do this, you fly open. You'll know because your ball speed will die. So when you go to turn, it has to stay on the side like I'm hitting, right? And throw from there. So any drills, exercises to improve scapular mobility? Yeah, we just talked about push-up plus. Push-up plus with dumbbells, bench press, push-ups, push-up plus. Look that up. I'm going to post one later showing how we can use these drills to rotate the arms and work on the scaps. Anything else?
Hugo Pro Baseball said that when you are pushing off the rubber that you want to turn your ankle against the rubber, causing a push. Is that healthy for the ankle?
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I think I'm not supposed to say his name, but a successful pitcher with the team in Washington, if anyone knows him, he's got his eyes have different colors. I read one of his texts through a friend of mine, and he talked about that. He talked about how he tries to ride his heel down the mound, with his left leg heel down the mound, and he tries to turn his back foot in. So he rides his heel, turns his back foot in. So he teaches it that way. So I would say John with Hugo Pro, which is the man, I would say he's giving you good advice because you're going to have successful pitchers that'll give that advice. I coach it not so much trying to turn the back foot. I coach it that if the front foot opens, if you open the front foot, that will create the rotation, and then you just have to extend and drive. Because if I think of turning the back foot, I don't want to extend. So I like to start rotation up front, and then try to just push and accelerate through that, and then what I call trigger rotation, power rotation. But that's a tough moment in the delivery, and you can try it different ways and see what works for you. Turning your foot or opening your front side and powering and sinking up through your backside. I think it's going to work differently with different people. So,
what's an elite level to sit for me? This will be my freshman year. I know 70 is average, but what is an elite level?
And he's a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about that, because you want to build your foundation to be an upperclassman and throwing hard. So if you worry about how hard you're throwing now, it might take away from your goal of where you want to be when it really matters. Klokov, who's the Russian Olympic lifter, search Klokov, wisdom, I think that's what it was, and look at his video. He talks about how you need to set goals to where you want to be at the end of your career, and stop looking at these like short moments in your career. So if you're going, hey, I want to be a Major League Baseball player in the World Series, like lay it all out, guys, whatever you want to do. I mean, if it's far-fetched, whatever, lay it all out. And everything you do every day is to get there. And every step in between is important, but you shouldn't be focused on that as much as you're focused on where you're going. Because everything you're doing the question is it getting me closer to where I'm going to make my name, where I'm going to be, my legacy is going to be. And so every little step along the way shouldn't take away from that. So you might have good games and bad games. It won't matter as long as you know you're still on track to be where you want to be. So I think that's a better approach. So if I'm sitting here, I'm a freshman, and I'm going, am I throwing hard enough for now? I'm not really focused on where I want to be at the end of my career. If I was focused on where I'm being in the career, I wouldn't be worried about where I am now. I'd just be worried about, am I doing the things every day? Am I developing my body every day? So, I get to, in the next 10 years, I can get to the World Series in big league ball. That should all that matters.
Yeah, that would take you off your goal. You get discouraged. You're like, I'm not where I want to be, and then it will affect your training and just your whole attitude towards your goal, because you're just looking at right now instead of what the overall picture is.
Yeah, so. and like you sit in here and you're like, oh, I didn't throw hard enough today, and you want to go home and quit. And that just took you away from what you really want to do in life, which is play big league ball and throw in a World Series. That just took you away from that because you're too focused on what you're trying to do now and not what you're building for in your entire career.
Yeah, I feel like, especially during those testing times, you need to just sit back and appreciate that you have the opportunity to go after your goal, and just, not a lot of people have the opportunity to go after their goals, and, the fact that you're going after something that what only a certain percentage of the population can even do is astounding within itself. So,
you guys, the freedom, he's nailing the hammer on the nail, right? The freedom in this country to be able to go after your passion, your goal, is an amazing thing that many people have given their lives to create. So that in itself is just such a blessing to this life, that you can put yourself in this country in a place to work towards the things that you love to do and you want to do at an elite level. So, I mean, Gary's nailing it. Like, just focus on what this is all about. The freedom to be who you want to be and be the best at it. And keep that the mindset, keep that the vision, and don't let the little bitty things along the way set you back and distract you, right?
Yeah, it's all a test. Like, anyone that's ever achieved anything worth of anything, they had to go through many obstacles. So you just have to pass each test as they come to you, and everybody's test is going to be different. So anytime something discouraging comes your way, you just have to know it's a test, attempting to keep you from your goal.
Well, Instagram just cut off because we're at the hour mark. So once again, it looks like we're not going to get to all the questions. We're going to do 2 more questions. What we got?
What's your take on anti-inflammatories after throwing hard?
Yeah, so anti-inflammatory medication, studies show it destroys your gut bacteria and that it inhibits tissue repair over time. So it's not something you want to be doing for a long term, because your gut bacteria is very important to your immune system, and inhibiting tissue repair in your shoulder will eventually cause your arm to break down quicker through your career. So I would say only use them if you have to. There is natural ways to do it, like turmeric, good oils, fish oil, garlic, avocado, pineapple. Go a natural way to that. Icing, mashing, voodoo bands, stuff like that. Therapy, dry needling, Graston, stuff like that. I would go there before I went to the Advil, or I wouldn't say Advil, like the anti-inflammatory.
I guess I won't name the names, but a certain pitcher, when he starts his rotation and his stretch, turns his hip backwards a lot, while another one stays more upright in his movement. Does turning too much move your opposition?
So someone like the first pitcher you're talking about, who plays for the team in New York, which I can probably say it because they gave me permission to talk about him, the Yankees, the closer for the Yankees, he counter-rotates more because he has a lot of mobility. He has a lot of trunk mobility. He has a lot of horizontal adduction. So he can really load, and he also has a lot of power to get out of it. The other pitcher you're talking about, I don't even know who he plays for, he can't do that. He doesn't have the mobility. So he goes into hip flexion, and that's probably all he's got. He gets his arm out, that's probably all he's got. So he's focused on more on just power, like how much power can I get going? And then the best way to understand a pitcher has a lot of mobility, the pitcher doesn't, is what I use the runway analogy. Because basically mobility, range of motion, guy who has more range of motion, more mobility, is like these 2 jets on a runway. Is a guy who has a longer runway. So if I have 2 jets on a runway and they have to go 160 miles an hour to take off, that's like 2 pitchers trying to get to 100 miles an hour. Whoever has the longer runway has more time to get to that speed, and they don't have to accelerate as quicker. If they have the short runway, they got to really accelerate to get up. So a pitcher who has all this mobility and has the jet to power through it, it gives him more time to get to that speed, and he doesn't have to over accelerate, and that's going to be less stress on his body. But once again, if you can't get more runway, you just have to get more powerful. So you might not see those guys going for the longer runway or more mobility because they don't have it, so they just have to be more powerful in the movement, but unfortunately they're putting more stress on their body. Is that it?
Yep.
Could you please talk about getting back to pitching after slap repair? Missed it earlier. So I said with slap repair, like any injury to the shoulder, any part of the body, you have to learn how to strengthen everything. The arm, the shoulder capsule, the scaps, the hips, because they relate to that, the legs, the core. You got to do a better job of becoming an elite athlete. So tell yourself, I am going to become an elite athlete when I'm on the field so my body can handle and better distribute stress through my body. That's the biggest priority after a shoulder injury than what I went through with my rotator cuff tear. You have to really take a better perspective on your training, put more time in to build a better athlete, and then you got to learn better mechanics and you'll stay healthy. All right, guys, that was good. I know we missed more questions, but we'll do this again, hopefully next Friday. We got camp next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. So we're excited about that. Don't forget about we have camp in Arizona on March 23rd, 24th, Fuel Factory Baseball. We'll see you next time, guys.